At some point in your life, you probably notice something strange. You wake up, you do what you're supposed to do, you stay busy, you stay productive, you stay responsible, and yet it feels like you're not actually moving forward. Days pass, weeks pass, months pass, and the more you try to fix it, the more stuck you feel. Most people assume that means something is wrong with them. They think they lack discipline, they think they're lazy, they think they're unmotivated, they think they're broken. But that's not what's happening. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just stuck in a loop so subtle that most people live their entire lives inside it without ever realizing it exists. Because the loop doesn't feel like a trap, it feels like life. You wake up, you check your phone, you react, you work, you distract yourself, you go to sleep, then you do it again, and again, and again. The loop doesn't hurt you all at once. It drains you slowly, so slowly that you adjust to it, you normalize it. You start believing that this constant mental noise, this background anxiety, this feeling of always being behind is just how adulthood feels, but it's not. It's conditioning. The loop is not accidental, it's engineered, not to ruin you, but to keep you predictable. Predictable people are easy to manage, easy to sell to, easy to guide, easy to distract. And once you see the loop clearly, something strange happens. You realize the problem was never motivation, it was awareness. The loop works by hijacking your attention, not aggressively, gently, quietly. It fills your day with reactions instead of decisions, messages instead of meaning, tasks instead of direction, urgency instead of importance. You're always responding, rarely choosing. And when you live in response mode long enough, you forget what intentional living even feels like. That's when people start saying things like, I don't know what I want. I feel lost. I feel numb. I feel stuck. They're not lost. They're overstimulated. Your brain was not designed to process thousands of inputs a day, notifications, opinions, news, trends, expectations. Each one pulls you slightly out of yourself, not enough to notice, but enough to fragment your focus. And fragmented focus creates fragmented lives. This is why you can be busy all day and still feel empty at night. You didn't build anything, you didn't move toward anything, you just maintained motion. The loop feeds on motion without direction. Because direction requires clarity, and clarity requires silence. The loop hates silence. Silence creates awareness. Awareness creates questions. Questions lead to exits. So the loop keeps you entertained endlessly. Scroll, watch, listen, react. Even your relaxation is structured, algorithmic, designed. You're never really off. And a mind that never turns off can never go deep. Depth is dangerous. Depth leads to realization. Realization leads to change, and change breaks loops. This is why most people feel uncomfortable when things slow down. When there's no noise, no distraction, no stimulation, they don't feel peace, they feel anxiety, because in silence the loop loses control, and the mind starts noticing things, like how little time actually passes between Mondays, like how quickly years blur together, like how their life feels strangely pre-written. That's not depression, that's awareness trying to surface. The loop's most powerful trick is convincing you that you are the problem. So instead of questioning the structure of your life, you start optimizing yourself inside the same structure. You wake up earlier, you buy productivity tools, you try new routines, you push harder, but nothing changes because you're still inside the loop. Effort doesn't break loops. Perspective does. This is why advice like just work harder feels insulting at a certain point. You are working hard. That's not the issue. The issue is you're working inside a closed system, a hamster wheel disguised as progress. And the wheel doesn't care how fast you run. It only cares that you keep running. The loop rewards consistency without awareness. That's why so many people stay stuck for decades. They're consistent, they're responsible, they're reliable, but they're not free. Freedom begins the moment you realize the loop exists. Not dramatically, not emotionally, quietly. You start noticing patterns, you notice how your day is decided before it starts, you notice how your attention is pulled instead of placed. You notice how rarely you sit with a single thought long enough to finish it. And once you see that, and you can't unsee it, the loop is built around short-term feedback, likes, messages, deadlines, dopamine. All immediate, all shallow, all fleeting. Long-term rewards don't survive in the loop. They require patience, delay, discomfort. The loop replaces meaning with stimulation. That's why people feel tired but restless, exhausted but unable to stop. The mind is full. The soul is empty. This is not a motivation problem, it's a systems problem. The loop thrives in modern life because it aligns perfectly with incentives. Platforms profit from attention. Companies profit from urgency. Institutions profit from compliance. No one profits from you slowing down and thinking deeply about your life, except you. And that's the part no one teaches, because once someone steps out of the loop, they stop being predictable. They start designing instead of reacting. They stop asking, what should I do today? And start asking, what am I building? That question alone breaks the spell. Builders don't live in loops. They live in layers. They think in systems. They think in leverage. They think in direction. They create things that exist without them. Assets, content, skills, knowledge, things that compound. The loop hates compounding. Compounding creates escape velocity. So the loop keeps you focused on maintenance. Maintenance feels productive, but it leads nowhere. This is why some people feel a strange calm when they finally step away, when they stop consuming, when they reduce noise, when they sit with boredom long enough for clarity to emerge. At first it feels uncomfortable, then it feels peaceful, then it feels powerful, because power comes from control over attention, and attention is the root currency of your life. Where your attention goes, your life follows. The loop takes your attention without asking. Breaking the loop means taking it back intentionally. This doesn't require quitting your job, or moving to the mountains, or becoming extreme. It requires one thing: interrupting automatic behavior, not all at once, gradually. You stop reacting immediately, you pause, you choose. That pause is where freedom begins. Most people never experience that pause. They move from one stimulus to the next until life is over, not because they wanted to, but because no one showed them another way. The hypnotic part of the loop is that it feels normal. Everyone else is doing it. Everyone else is tired. Everyone else is distracted. So you assume it's just adulthood, but adulthood is not supposed to feel like quiet despair. That's a sign of misalignment. The loop trains you to confuse familiarity with safety, even when familiarity is draining you. Stepping out feels risky because it's unfamiliar, but unfamiliar is where growth lives. The moment you start designing your days instead of filling them, everything changes. Your energy shifts, your focus sharpens, time slows down, because now you're present. And presence is the antidote to loops. This is why people who escape the loop often seem calmer, not louder, not more frantic, calmer. They're not chasing, they're building, they're not reacting, they're directing. And once you experience that state, going back feels impossible. The loop still exists, but it no longer owns you. You can enter it when you choose and leave when you want. That's freedom. Not the absence of responsibility, but the presence of choice. If this video feels like it's describing you, that's not coincidence, that's recognition. Awareness recognizes itself, and awareness is the first crack in the loop. If you want to understand how people break out, not emotionally but structurally, the links in the description go deeper. And if you felt this quiet sense that life could be more intentional, more focused, more aligned, you're not wrong. You were never broken, you were just conditioned. And once you see the loop, you don't have to live inside it anymore.